Good morning, Chris Burdge. How are you?
Good morning, Marc Stoiber. I'm good. How are
I'm
you?
so happy, man. We see the sun again. It's so nice.
The sun is shining, the snow is melting, spring will be here soon.
Jesus, yesterday was depressing. I wanted to shoot myself.
No, we need more of that, but just up on the hill, up in Mount Washington.
I know, I
More
know.
snow.
Well, yeah, it was dumping up at my in-laws' place, just by Elk Lake. Everybody who's listening to us from anywhere except
Yeah.
Victoria. Sorry,
Yeah.
we're just catching up here. Chris, Chris and I have known each other since I moved to Victoria. We moved in the same circles in Toronto, but we never really got to know each other there. And you are now running bWest Communication, which is a digital agency specializing in SEO and building websites in addition to Facebook campaigns, et cetera, et cetera. But what I want to talk to you about, the reason we first met was because you invited me to talk at a conference called Social Media Camp. And it was a really good conference. It was like a 3 or 4 day event, great speakers, lots of attendees, really well done. And then you invited me to talk at another conference, which you're shamelessly promoting on your shirt there, the Soho conference, small office, home office, which again, I think is a genius idea. And I think it's an idea that is going to explode even more as more and more entrepreneurs are involuntarily created by the economic meltdown.
Indeed.
So yeah, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, good to be here. And
Now you're also one of the charter members. You're the one who told me to start this whole mess. You're the one who said you were working on my SEO and you said, you realize people are actually downloading this BrandDIY book. Do you want to make something out of it? And I said, what? And he said, why don't you start a Facebook group? I'm going, what? So you set everything up for me. So
and I said,
have you to blame.
Please don't forget us when you become famous. And here you are.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're going to be the guy. This is a little inside the kimono look for folks. I'm going to be talking to you a little bit later because I put together a whole bunch of product, basically stuff that I figured out from the Facebook group, from BrandDIY group. Folks want to learn. I'm putting together these little power packs and you're going to help me sell them.
So do you see a pattern here to my success already? I think you've just laid it out.
Shameless exploitation of people stupider than you.
On the contrary, I find people, really smart people that are great at what they do and know lots more than I do. And I get them out in front of me and I put them on a stage and give them a little push and away they go. And then somehow I end up looking good, but they do all the work.
Yeah, well, I'm just like, I love doing this. I gotta thank you too, because this BrandDIY group, I mean, you and I are going to work on, you and I had this conversation where Marc Stoiber, the consultant, generally a little more upmarket, BrandDIY, people just starting out, entrepreneurs, separating those two brands. So that's advice that you gave me. And so I'm going to be chasing that. You and I are going to talk about that. But building this whole sort of thing, I got to tell you, if that's called pushing me out onto the stage, I love it because I just love doing this. I love the BrandDIY thing. And I love working with entrepreneurs and getting feedback and having experts on.
And for any of the 500 people that are a member of the BrandDIY group, that's pretty obvious because right from day one, I think you started it, I don't know, was it June, July, something like that. You've been at it, I think, almost every day, like more consistent than anyone I've ever seen before, because we've recommended different things to different clients. And sometimes they'll do it for a month or 2 months or something, but then eventually it kind of peters out or they get distracted or something, but you have been on top of it. In fact, you've been building momentum and gaining and doing more and more. So I don't know what happened here with having me on, but you were doing so well up to today.
Yeah, no, I kind of ran out of, all the smart people were sick today. But no, I love doing this. It's, and you deal with people who by nature are excited because they're starting their own business.
Yeah.
And
well,
they all have problems and they're also appreciative. And by gathering them all together, I don't have the feeling like, oh, well, I'm going to sink all my costs into this and not get anything out. By spreading the love, everybody gets a lift. And it's just, I got to tell you, it really does feel good to do this. It feels like, you get to use all the skills you learned at Procter & Gamble and McDonald's and Budweiser and give them to folks who might not have the dough, but my God, they're keen.
Yep. Well, you've just sort of described what the kind of the joy and the passion I had and I got out of social media camp in Soho. Different sort of events, but it's the same sort of idea, is bringing on smart people and bringing people together and kind of watching them kind of flourish and learn new things and connect with each other. So it's just a bit of a different platform, but it's sort of the same idea. But yeah, it's
Now,
been great to see you do that.
what got you started? Because I look at social media camp and the
Mm,
logistics and the organization,
yeah.
my head explodes. What would possibly drive you to that sort of masochistic move?
Well, I'll tell the story real quick. I've told it lots of times before, and some people may have heard it, but it was, I guess, almost 11 years ago now. Just social media was right at its infancy, and bWest was primarily just a social media company. We were just doing strategies. Back then, it was really Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. That was about it. A little bit of YouTube, I guess. And my partner in social media camp was Paul Holmes, and he was doing this little word camp kind of offbeat conference for WordPress users. And, I barely knew what WordPress was. I probably didn't know it all, in fact, but he asked me to come and talk about social media because I was sort of one of the few people back then doing anything related to social media. So I thought, oh, okay, I'll go. It's going to be like a room full of propeller head nerds and I'll tell them about social media. And so I went there and there was about 100 people there and I was absolutely floored. I had no idea there was going to be that many people. And yeah, there was a few nerds, but they were really jazzed about just blogging, because WordPress was primarily a blogging platform back then. And so I talked about social media, but immediately it occurred to me, I thought, wow, if 100 people are willing to pay money and come and hear someone talk about WordPress for a day, I wonder how many people would want to hear about social media, because it was really growing. So I thought, okay, well, yeah, maybe I'll give it a try. Put together a little social media conference, and that was like in April, I think, of 2009 or 10. So I asked Paul if he was into it, and he said, yeah, let's do it. And so we did a one-day event in October. It was either 2009 or 2010, really not knowing what to expect, but we figured, okay, go big or go home. So we decided to have it at the conference center, which was the biggest venue, had it in the theater there. And we sold the place out. There was 400 people came, and I was doing cartwheels down the hall. I just couldn't believe it.
Mhm.
So we were on to something. So it's kind of right time, right place, right time, and I readily admit that back then I was not an event planner, had really no idea what I was doing, just caught on to the right subject, the right topic, subject matter,
Mhm.
brought in, and we had some great speakers back then. We had Scott
Mhm.
Stratton, Julian Smith, some really bright people, and kind of built on it from there.
Yeah. So, was there any glow for bWest? Did your company benefit from this? Is this something that you would recommend an entrepreneur do
Yeah.
to promote their own company?
Yeah, so absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I did it for sort of two reasons. One is that, I thought it would be fun to put this event together and so on, but also it's a feeder for my main business. My bread and butter, my day job, as I call it, is bWest
Mhm.
Communications and what we do. And it always has been. Now, granted, social media camp ended up becoming so big that it was like a second job. And at times it took over.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was always meant to be a feeder, because the people that came to social media camp or Soho in the last 5 years, um, they all need some form of digital communications, whether it be a website or SEO or strategy or
Mhm.
social media, whatnot. So, uh, having said that, though, I'm not a great kind of overt promoter of myself and my business. So there would be subtle promotion and so on, and sponsorships of bWest at the events and so on. But people knew what I did, so I definitely did get lots of work from it, in terms of clients and business. But the other great thing, and this is something I think that people should know, is that not just the direct getting of business, but it really back then put me in a position as being kind of a knowledge leader or an expert in that area. So back then, when something happened on Facebook or Twitter, and it was all the rage, of course, and then people wanted to know. So I would get a call from Check News or CFAX or CBC. I've been on all the media talking about what's going on, and that was because of what I was doing. So I mean,
Mhm.
it really is it had lots of different benefits to it. So getting business, but also being positioned as a leader, and then also getting to know people like yourself.
Yeah, I'm sorry
Other
about that, but I
speakers.
mean, there's got to be an upside to everything.
Well, if you think about it, just look at, that initial meeting, whenever it was, maybe 6, 7 years ago, 8 years ago,
Yeah,
you spoke, and look at all the things we've done since then,
I
and
know. It's
clients we've
fantastic. I
shared and
love
so
it.
on. Yeah.
Now,
So- yeah.
so I want to organize. I'm an entrepreneur. I don't know what. I make widgets. So I want to organize something like this. And oh, there's Colleen. Hi. She's in here wrapping Christmas presents. Don't tell the kids.
Hi, Colleen.
So I'm an entrepreneur and I am selling SaaS accounting software. Words of advice for me when it comes to planning event. I imagine the first thing you got to do is like know what the finish line is before you get started, right? Like what do you want to accomplish?
Well, for sure. And the finish line is a goal. You want to have a goal and objectives. And often that has to do with who your audience is. And so for both social media campaign and Soho, I didn't build the audience around who is the audience for bWest. bWest was kind of a complementary beneficiary of what it was, but it was really around my passion. And back then I had the passion for social media, and then I have the passion for small business. So it was, what is the goal for that particular thing? So you use the example of accounting software. So actually I have a client in that area, so it'd be interesting for them. But let's say they wanted to do something like that. They could put together a whole, say a virtual event even for that. It would be, well, knowing what they know about the industry, what do people need to know or need to learn to be successful in that? So set that goal and then work backwards from there. Okay, well, what would the content be? Okay, well, who are the best speakers in those areas, and who can we get to speak on those things, and create the calendar, and then go after sponsors and everything. But yeah, the main thing, like any good strategies, you want to have a goal, and you want to make sure that whoever the audience is going to benefit from that.
Second question, COVID has taken us all into this world now, and we're now doing online conferences. Do you think that I sense that there is a real benefit? I know there is for BrandDIY for building a tribe, right? And it's sort of like what my friend Grad Kahn said when he came on here. He said, what we've got is an advice network. And I'm like, never heard that term. But it's a network of people giving each other advice and helping each other, and everybody feels they get something out of it, and everybody feels they got to contribute something to it. Do you think that I'm running my SaaS accounting software company? I go, I'm going to start organizing sort of an advice network where we meet once a month and we have a few guest speakers, like a conference light. Yep. And everybody gets to contribute and say what they want to hear about. And I build my tribe that way. That might be a good way to kind of start into this, dip your toe into the whole conference organizing thing.
For sure. Yeah, there's lots of ways to go about this. And there's lots of different levels to start at. So if you don't want to, go big, and obviously you can't have the big in-person event right now, but even if you don't want to start a huge virtual event or conference or something, there's lots of different ways to go about it. I mean, what you just described can also be called like a mastermind group. There's lots of those going on. I haven't heard that what did you call it? Advice group? Advice
network. I'd never heard it until he said it.
Advice network, advisory council. So two things I did kind of in March right away when the COVID thing happened. I was already doing small monthly events at different venues for Soho, and I would bring in speakers. I think you were on the list, but then you ended up coming on virtually. But we had like Mike Fardy, I did one, and so on. And we would, they were just like, we called them satellite events, and we would have them like at coffee shops and stuff where you might get 30, 40 people. Was going to do one at Quench, for example. So that's where you can, start smaller and just focus on one topic. Like we would do like email marketing or different things for that small business owners, even accounting, you can bring people in. So that's one thing. And that's what we were doing. But of course, when the lockdown came and we had to stay home, then we just moved it virtually. And we went actually from monthly to weekly. And as you know, you were on a couple of times, I think. And then we even did that panel of experts as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's easy enough to do. And it's not that, and we did it on Zoom. So it's sort of like this. The other thing I did right back in the early days in March is I created what we ended up calling the Vic Local Power Team. So it's sort of like a mastermind group, but it's a power team group. There's about 8 of us. Catherine Hamilton is one of the members, but I just picked people from different industries and different professions. And we meet once a week and we just started to talk about, hey, what's going on? What are you seeing out there? How can we help others? How can we help each other? Because, all the news was coming in was all different in terms of all the, benefits coming from the government and so on.
Mhm.
And I didn't think it would last as long as it did, but we're still going, we're still meeting once a week. And it is actually sort of like an advisory network. So we're all from different professions and we all kind of help each other out, and we look for opportunities to help other local small businesses as well.
It's interesting because I also think conferences were wonderful because I'm a singleton, right? I'm a consultant.
Mm.
And so for me, going to social media camp and meeting all these people in my home market was wonderful. But I think it's just as wonderful if you can extend that and say, hey, I'm going to, organize a conference, invite a lot of people, forces you out of your shell, forces you to meet people. Suddenly people know you as the conference organizer guy.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's wonderful psychotherapy as well, just to get yourself out of the COVID shell and the Zoom shell of being stuck in your office, kind of feeling kind of alone. I bet that there must be a benefit to that as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's, none of us like to be stuck at home doing nothing or just banging away on the computer all day long, whether it's meeting like this, which is what we're kind of stuck with at the moment. Or, once we're able to have the bigger events again, I can't wait to host another Soho or whatever it is. I've got ideas for other events. But that's where this is great, and we're all making the best of it. But the real jazz is when you're out there, with 200, 300, 400 people, and you're listening to great speakers, and there's high energy, and then there's a networking event, and you can all go out and have a drink after and connect, and that's where all the value came from. I mean, when I think about all the events that I did, as great as the speakers are, like yourself, and all the wisdom you can pass on, that's a great takeaway. But the
it's nothing compared to beer.
Yeah. Well, the common denominator that I heard from everybody in terms of value were the connections that they made.
Yeah.
The people that they meet, sometimes they end up partnering with them and working together, or one becomes a client of the other, or somebody gets a job somewhere. I mean, those are the stories that I always love to hear.
Final question, sponsors. At every conference that you had, you'd have the foyer filled with sponsors. Is that more of a pain in the ass than a benefit, or is that something that, it seems to me like I get a whole bunch of speakers, get them talking to a whole bunch of people who could be my clients, and then I got to go out and get sponsors. That seems like just such a pain in the ass. Is it worth it?
That's definitely worth it. Yeah. I mean, that's a big part of the sustainability of the event, the financial support for it as well, because the more that sponsors can financially support the event, the lower the ticket of the event, and then the number of people that it becomes accessible for, that you can get to attend and so on. But also, we always planned it so that it wasn't just we're going to put this event together and okay, let's grab these sponsors. We tried as best we could to make them a part of the event, so that they are integral to the event. And that's, really when it makes sense, is that whatever the product is that they have, a product or service or whatever, that it's of value. And so sometimes they would end up being a speaker at the event, and they would try to do activations in terms of, if it was a software for a service and so on. But you want to make sure that, everything is kind of aligned and it makes sense for them. Not that they're just going to plop down some money and put a logo up. That doesn't work for anybody. You want to make sure that it's a win-win.
Putting this on, I'm running an accounting software company. Do I want to bring in an event organizer to do this for me? Or do you think it's better to do it organically by yourself and be more legit about it?
Well, depending on the size of it, I mean, we always, here, one of the other smart things is we get smart people like you to come and speak, and we get people that know how to organize events. So I'm trying to remember the first year. Yeah, we did have an event organizer helping us out the first year, but as it got bigger, we got like bigger and better and more professional event management companies, because to run a 2 or 3 day event, there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, I
And
could imagine
so,
screwing up in a million ways.
yeah, and I'm not a guy for all the details and everything. So you definitely need to have somebody who knows what they're doing, and because there's a lot of follow up to do, and when you've got 60 speakers and 20 sponsors and 400 or 500 attendees, absolutely. Now, if you're running something smaller, if it's just a 10-person thing that's on Zoom or something, you can probably do it yourself, but it wouldn't be bad to have an assistant or even an intern, somebody to get them involved in terms of even just the reach out or the follow up and so on, or maybe doing the tech things that maybe you're not great at or whatever, and then you can focus on the core of the event, which is generally the people. It all depends on the size, but yeah, not a bad idea to have some help.
Final question before we get into the pitching Soho and bWest, but the final question, you would be available, somebody, no, wait a minute. No, the final question should be, Soho, when we get out of the COVID slump, I want to throw this open to all the entrepreneurs at BrandDIY. I think it'd be a perfect fit, hey?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Either attending, or I mean, Soho had lots of different aspects to it, which is, I mean, that's part of the whole event thing I love, is just crafting this whole idea and this thing. So we had speakers, of course, you have to have speakers, but it was more about the practical hands-on, the workshops and the one-on-one expert advisors, and some things that were kind of new that I hadn't seen anyone do before. I think you were involved in the expert advisors as well, where someone could book 15 minutes with you and just sit down and ask you anything. So we had a room full of those. But yeah, the BrandDIY folks they're probably some great professionals in their specific field that we could
also
have
attendees. I mean, these folks are by nature, a lot of them are by nature small businesses. They're just, coming out of the garage.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be great. So now, I am a BrandDIY entrepreneur, and I'm thinking ahead for 2021. I'm all optimistic that things are going to get back to pseudo normal. I can reach out to you at BrandDIY and go, Chris, how the heck do I do this? I've got a toilet brush company. What do I do? So you're open to that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Whether they want to put on an event or whatever it happens to be, if they need some help with digital media stuff, yeah, happy to help.
Because I think it would be so helpful, rather than bang their nose against the learning curve, to figure out where you banged your nose and avoid some of the massive mistakes I'm sure you could make when you're putting 300 people, 200 people, 100 people together.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Happy to help.
Awesome, man. Well, listen, thank you so much. And I'm not going to wish you a Merry Christmas now, because I know we're going to be talking about BrandDIY, the books that were the power packs that we're marketing and all that stuff. So
yeah, you can wish me a Merry Christmas.
I'm not going to wish you Merry Christmas just yet, but thank you so much for taking the time. And I'm going to follow up and make sure everybody gets all your info so that they can tap you for organizing their own conference.
Sounds good, buddy.
Rock and roll.
My
Talk
pleasure.
to ya.
Yeah. Have a great day.
Bye.
Ciao.